And we're live. Please make a start.
Welcome everyone to this exciting panel, Partnering for Resilience, a Collective Impact. And we have a great set of speakers today. My name is Kate Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Global Island Partnership. And I'd like to first acknowledge that we will have a poll during this event. And so audience members are kindly invited, along with our speakers, to take part in the poll. The poll is in the, you will be able to access it. Our questions in the poll are, what are the most important ingredients for a transformative partnership? And so we have a number of things that have been suggested based on kind of lessons learned in partnerships, including diversity and inclusiveness, trust building, leadership, clear communications, clearly defined goals, measuring impacts. If you have any other thoughts on things that you believe from your experience can contribute to that, please write them in the chat. We'd really love to hear from you. I've worked for over 10 years with the Global Island Partnership, and before that I worked with the Roundtable for Nature Conservation in the Pacific. And I'm a really strong believer in the power of partnerships to leverage action and really accelerate results for resilient development. And when we're talking about partnerships in this sense, we're talking here in this event about multi-stakeholder partnerships, which are collective and systematic approach of government, private sector, civil society, and the community really coming together to find ways to reduce associated vulnerabilities. Partnerships implies that we all have equal contribution to the solutions, and very much that is what we will hear today. Just a couple of housekeeping points. As I introduced the poll before, please get involved on the chat box on the right of the screen. We're really eager to hear from you. Share some of the stories that you have, some of the great partnerships you've been part of. And as risk practitioners, we have things to learn from you as well, including best practices and lessons learned. As I said before, you can also populate the poll section in the same space. There's the poll button, so I encourage you to fill that out. And you can also ask questions to the speakers in the Q&A tab. It can either be a general question or one specifically to the speaker. So I'd ask you to put who you would like to ask that question to. It is quite a short event, so hopefully we'll have time for a couple of questions from the audience. And now we're going to demonstrate with examples from the speakers' experiences how multi-stakeholder partnerships have the potential to explore and catalyze new and effective collaboration. And this is something we hear very much at all levels of the work that we do. We have 3 speakers to take us on this journey, from really a regional level approaches to the community levels, from general resilience building to the specific context of navigating COVID-19. I'm going to invite them to give us some introductory remarks on who they are and what partnership they are involved with. Our first speaker is Dr. Tapungao Falifo, the Secretary to the Government of Tuvalu and Chair of the Pacific Humanitarian Pathway on COVID-19. Dr. Falifo, you have the floor.
Aloha, and a very good morning to all of participants attending this session on this very important meeting. Thank you, moderator, for the kind words of introduction. Today, I will be sharing some of the lessons learned from the establishment and implementation of the Pacific Humanitarian Pathway on COVID-19. Following the declaration by the WHO in March 2020 of the COVID-19 pandemic, countries around the world, including Pacific Island countries, quickly closed their borders and put restrictions to control the impact of this deadly virus. As we all know, this had unprecedented and unintended consequences of impacting the ease of movement of medical and humanitarian assistance to and across the region. The immediate need across the region at the time was to ensure that members' requests for medical and humanitarian assistance needs for their preparedness and response to COVID-19 could be met by regional and international community in a timely, safe, effective, and equitable manner. In April 2020, forum leaders invoked two regional declarations on security and human support, known as the Bikitawa Declaration and Boet Declaration, in order to provide the basis for a regional response to COVID-19. The Pacific Island Forum Secretariat, in partnership with a number of regional and international technical agencies, developed the PHPC, which was considered and endorsed by Forum Foreign Ministers on June 17. A ministerial action group was established to provide political oversight and support the regional task force to oversee the development of relevant protocols and the organization of the PHPC. The 5 protocols covering the deployment of technical personnel, operation, support, custom, repatriations, diplomatic clearance were endorsed by foreign ministers in June 2021. To date, the PHPC has undertaken over 25 flights since it was set up in July 2021, delivering over 290 metric tons of health and humanitarian supplies and 155 technical health and humanitarian personnel across the region. The PHPC has played a critical role in strengthening the resilience of forum against COVID-19, and the partnerships established were instrumental in the success of this initiative. Thank
you. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful intervention, and it's really great to hear such efforts swinging into place in this region. Our next speaker is Janet Latawa, who's the Executive Director of Rise Beyond the Reef. Janet, you have the floor.
Hi, good morning. Yeah, thanks so much for having us here. We operate a women's economic and leadership development program in partnership with Rural Remote, mostly Indigenous communities in Fiji. And partnership is really at the core of our work, and I think is sort of a mode that we hope to encourage more in the Pacific rather than doing project-based work. So happy to be here today and to share a little bit about what we've learned.
Awesome, thank you. And our next, we're going to hear a little bit more from Janet shortly. Our next speaker is Mr. Choi Yeating, who's the Senior Policy Advisor and National Climate Change Coordinator for the government of Kiribati. And he's going to talk to us about his experience of the Pacific Resilience Partnership Task Force and this multi-stakeholder partnership. So Choi, you have the floor.
Howdy everyone, and good morning. It's an honor as well to be part of this line of panelists this morning. A big melody to all those that have, I guess, logged in this morning to this session. As alluded to, my name is Choi Yeating. I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for Climate Change at the Office of the President and the National Climate Change Coordinator as well. A lot of national coordination of a lot of the mitigation and resilience efforts that we undertake as a national government, but also working closely with various stakeholders to implement the life that we have planned and designed. This morning I'll be talking about, I guess, the Pacific Resilience Partnership and then my role on the Pacific Resilience Partnership as a PRP task force member as well. And I think it's important to kind of differentiate the two as well, because there is a partnership, which is an essential element of how, overall we are looking towards benefits through partnerships to implement resilience actions. I guess the regions and different, I guess, practices and sectors. Secondly, I think as a PRP, it's more about kind of, you know, the enabling, I guess, environment or the enabling support that is required to ensure that we are implementing a lot of these activities through a coordinated, through coordinated means, but also through an integrated approach, you know, looking at, I guess, how we synergize different practices, be it adaptation to mitigation or, you know, disaster risk reduction, disaster risk management. Encompassing of this all is, of course, you know, this umbrella that we call resilience. And that's, I guess, how we're trying to operate or to work as a collective, as a region, to address the various issues that we have. Yeah. I think a key message that I want to leave, I guess, at this point in time, and of course, we'll have a bit more of a chance to kind of dwell on later in the session, is more, I guess, the importance of this partnership, and also, I guess, you know, who the partnership is for, and I guess taking these practical, I guess, lessons learned, but also, I guess, planning processes towards implementing all of these activities. The partnership is there to accommodate and to support the Pacific region. First and foremost important,
Troy, do you want to try turning off your video? I think that maybe we'll be able to hear you better.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Better now?
Yes. Yes.
I think the better. So I just wanted to take it from there. I think, you know, I think the importance of the partnership here is that it is there to kind of, you know, support practitioners, but also support those who are interested in being affiliated to this resilience or the resilience actions that we're taking within our own respective sectors or within our own respective kind of areas of work. You know, addressing climate change and its impacts, or addressing disaster risk requires collective actions. And I think this is where, you know, this partnership, and through partnerships, through this multi-stakeholder approach, and of course, through collective actions, I think we're able to do this efficiently and in a coordinated and integrated manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Troy. That's awesome. And we'll come back to you with some further questions shortly. We're going to get into a deep dive in the subject of partnerships, and I have some specific questions for each of you. And I'm going to start with Dr. Falifo. Dr. Falifo, in the regional COVID response, could you please briefly mention some of the key issues around the operational and strategic challenges and how multi-stakeholder collaboration have helped serve your purpose?
Thank you. In the region, without multi-stakeholders collaboration, this PHPC would not have been possible. There have been several challenges faced during establishment and the early implementation phase of the PHPC. This includes, one, ensuring the alignment and non-duplications of international and regional and national efforts through bilateral and multilateral engagement. Two, an iterative process undertaken to develop the draft protocols for the PHPC, given the need to balance various national interests as well as varied national response to COVID-19. And three, balancing the needs for agency and the need for due diligence and risk management. And four, financing and resourcing of the PHPC. In order to overcome these challenges, the Secretariat had to make sure that the right people are available to provide the right advice as a trust-building mechanism for achieving consensus within the task force. There are, however, several key factors that contributed to the region overcoming these challenges, which resulted in the successful establishment and effective implementation of the PHPC. Unfortunately, I don't have time to go through all of them, but please allow me to touch on a few that I think were crucial to the success of the PHPC. First, I would like to speak in terms of the political leadership. The conducive political environments provided through the invocation of the Davao Declaration and the regional policy setting established through the Davao and Poe Declaration enabled the region to mobilize quickly and to work towards a political settlement. Leaders were quick to appreciate immense risk posed by the pandemic to vulnerable public health system. For once, this journey of this worked in our favor, buying us valuable time to prepare. Any endeavor of this kind, across 1/3 of the surface with 18 unique countries and territories, requires patience and negotiation. Members were able to cast aside political differences to agree on and make the PHPC work. The other one is clear articulation of the system of fitness. From inception, partnership had a clear conceptual understanding of where it was placed in the regional and national systems and architecture to ensure that its activities are unique and added value to the layers of response at regional and national levels. A minimum requirement was established at the regional level through the PHPC protocols. Additional requirements by members were considered and satisfied before a flight was taken, meaning that national laws, policies, and plans took precedence in their application when it comes to PHPC implementation. The third, I would like to make mention of the joint visions and goals. From the outset, the region had a clear vision and purpose. The immediate needs of members were to A, prevent the importation of the virus, and B, strengthen their preparedness and response mechanism against COVID-19. Regional and international partners wanted to open a pathway that would enable the safe and timely delivery of health and humanitarian supplies and technical personnel to members. Despite differentiating sovereignty restrictions, policies, plans, and protocols, these visions and goals drove regional collaborations and assisted greatly in the region coming to an amicable solution on the development of the protocols in record time. The fourth issue that I would like to touch on is the right partnering approach and partners were optimal. Key stakeholders, both regional and international, were engaged early in the process as a trust-building mechanism for members, while at the same time ensure that stakeholders felt engaged as part of the process from its inception. New stakeholders were brought into the task force when required, and the task force would later be open to all members once the protocol were approved to improve coordination of assistance. Perhaps I will share the fifth point. Although I have several other points, but I'm conscious of the time. The fifth point that I would like to touch on is the strong leadership and operational capacity. The robust governance mechanism that the PHPC has contributed significantly to the overall efficiency of the PHPC. While ministerial action provided the overarching political oversight, the flexibility given to the task force in terms of how it coordinates and implement the PHPC ensured the timely and effective implementation of the initiative. Additionally, the strong commitment by the various stakeholders on agreed upon resourcing and in carrying out the different responsibilities on the implementation of the PHPC and the efficiency of the whole initiative. There were, however, funding issues, which to an extent limited our ability to respond to our members' requests, and I will deliberate more on this later. Moderator, I have to pause it there, but if I have more time, I will continue with some more other points. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Falifo, for those wonderfully constructed remarks. I think you really covered both what are some of the opportunities and challenges, and also kind of how you've been able to overcome some of those. I'm going to move to our next speaker. And I think just in your remarks, a lot of your points, I think, very neatly dovetail with our opening poll. And I actually wanted to remind the audience, particularly people that came later, that we have an active poll, which is focused on on your perspectives and thoughts on what are the most important ingredients for a transformative partnership. So if you're in the chat, it's in the same box as the chat to the right of your screen. And I encourage you to have a look at that. I think we'll move to our next speaker, which links very well to the remarks we've just heard from Dr. Falifo, and really with more of a perspective from some community-based approaches. And I'd like to ask Janet, with the current challenges of COVID-19 and ongoing capacity constraints faced by the Pacific, community-based approaches and creative use of local and available resources have been key to sustaining livelihoods in both rural areas and the informal sector. I suggest that we take a look at a video of the work of the Bassa Exchange, and then I'll invite you to provide your comments and additional information on how that partnership was made possible and what are some of the strengths of the partnership. So let us play a video of some work that you're involved in, and then we'll talk to it straight after. Katie, are you able to play the video? Thank you.
The concept of Bassa Exchange is based on the idea that we have that Fiji can feed Fiji. In the midst of this pandemic, we have to fight with what we have. And that involves everybody in the community. Here in rural and remote communities, we are producing or we are sharing what we have to our brothers and sisters in the urban areas who are in lockdown and the containment zone. It's about equity, sharing what we have to those that they need. And it's a balance. In the idea of Solidarity, it's coming together for a greater good, beyond just oneself. And when we want to employ the concept of Solidarity, we need to include everybody. Solidarity is about everybody contributing into a bigger battle that is to support each other during these difficult times. This concept of Bassa Exchange, where the aid sector provide financial support to be able for us to come to this rural and remote community and purchase crops at village gate. Often many of these communities, they've lost the opportunities in the market that they used to go to, but they have the crops. So promoting of circular economy, where funding comes from the aid sector. We purchase crops from the community at Village Gate, and we take the crops and share it to those that are in containment and lockdown areas. At the end, this community goes to small shops in towns or in their community to buy things that they need. The supporting of social circular economy and during this pandemic time.
It's after a year now. Our market, we struggled and it's been dropped. It's very hard for us to take our produce to Suva. Not many people there to buy. Today, we are so fortunate that our organization are here to buy our vegetables and coconuts to take to our brothers and sisters who have been locked down for quite some time now in Suva.
We are really happy that we are part of the Ambassa exchange.
We are lucky enough to meet this farm gate buying, just buying from a farm.
I'm happy to be part of that. We have a lot of food to share.
Not only help us with money, it contributes a lot to the people who locked down in Suva.
Big lalama from the people around the world from Berberi.
We are sending this food to our brothers and sisters, and we're sending it with our love and hope that you will get better.
Fiji can beat Fiji!
Wonderful video, Jenna, and over to you to tell us a little bit on your thoughts on both the video and what you see moving forward.
Thanks. I think for us, the concept of the Bassa Exchange was sort of a no-brainer. We work with rural and remote communities year-round, and so through our partnership, we invest ongoingly in leadership at the community level. And so activating a network of suppliers to address the food insecurity of people that are in sort of large urban drift pods and settlements in Suva and surrounding areas seemed to be like a pretty straightforward concept. I think that we've come to sort of treat rural remote communities as sort of a separate world to some degree in Fiji, and so because those are the communities that we really seek to partner with, we're constantly looking at opportunities for them to engage in the formal sector and also in the aid sector as suppliers and as actors, and for their knowledge and their resilience to really be valued and to have a place to support others.
Well, I can't start my video, so was going to ask you, what do you think are the, here we go. What do you think are the real kind of strengths of the partnership? And if you were recommending to other people how to do something like this, what would you say are some of the kind of underlying both challenges and opportunities?
I think we have to get beyond projects. We need to really think about how do you shift to a partnership model, because I think there's been so much pressure to focus on how do you leave after 3 to 5 years in a project. And for us, our work is really about how do you stay? Because I think, in all honesty, there's so many sort of hurdles and gaps to overcome in the Pacific, even for people in the city, and for people that are already included in the formal sector. To think that, rural remote or, vulnerable communities are going to overcome those gaps on their own from a 3 to 5 year project is really probably not all that accurate. And at this point, I think we have to be honest with ourselves, because the track record of aid projects in the Pacific really shows otherwise, with, almost a 50% failure rate. So I think it's time to really take a different approach. I think that there's a lot of opportunities in taking a long-term partnership approach because I think resilience starts with us as organizations. If we're not resilient as organizations and we're 99.9% dependent on $8 to run our programs, I don't think there's honestly any way we can lead communities to become resilient. So I think that we really also have to have, a hard look at our models and how do we create some earned income options so that we can be more responsive, we can be more flexible, and that we really have an opportunity to develop more homegrown, responsive, efficient models to support resiliency in communities and, in the work that we do as organizations long-term.
Thanks, Janet. In fact, I was on a panel yesterday for Asia Pacific Climate Week, which had a very similar conclusion that we need to move out of project thinking all the time into kind of more programs. And there was also a huge focus on the community side of things. So I think some of these messages are carrying over through different sessions. And we'll come back to you a little bit later, but I really appreciate your insights. I think this rethinking of our model is critical, and I encourage us to think about how we integrate that into a future session. Building on that, we're going to move back to Kiribati and Choi. But before that, I really want to remind people, please put in the chat any questions you have or any thoughts that you would like us to communicate or you'd like speakers and others to see. Fill in the poll that is also on there, and we'll try to get to your questions. But Choi, we want to hear more about the Framework for Resilience in the Pacific, or the FRDP, and its supporting implementation mechanism, the Pacific Resilience Partnership. Let's have a more general approach to resilience building and reflect on your 4 years as a member of the task force. Could you tell us about what your role has been and what activities you've advocated for?
Thank you, Kate. And, it has been an honor to serve as the Micronesian, constituent representative here on the PRP task force. A lot of the work that we've done, especially at the beginning, was to really advocate for the framework for resilient development, but also this specific resilience partnership that would serve as a mechanism to support countries and to support even local organizations or groups to as contributors to resilience, or the resilience efforts that we're undertaking. We had a chance to go to visit, some of the islands within the Micronesian constituency, and kind of firsthand, what the current status was here. Based on the discussions and based on the consultations that we had conducted, there was a lot of there was very, I think first foremost, to say that there was, a big gap in terms of understanding what resilience was really. Of course, each, from their different corners and what they were doing, they did not know that, they were contributing overall to this, to their overall efforts to, in terms of building their resilience, be it at the community, the household level as well. And I think this is where the task force really tried to focus its efforts on really supporting, local communities, also local organizations, to kind of, build on that. And we understand that doing, this on your own really doesn't take you to kind of where you want to be. And that's why, you have to kind of start integrating and kind of, doing things as a collective to ensure that, a lot of the work that you're doing really transpires and becomes kind of, achieves that certain level of resilience, because we are talking about this at this point, that you're kind of working towards. And so the initial work that we have been doing as a PRP task force and myself more specifically, is kind of, the advocacy work and working, very closely with my constituents to tease that out a bit more. What does, what that has kind of brought it to kind of fruition within the PRP task force itself is informing how things should be kind of, molded, or developed in terms of responding to the actual request or the aspirations that, each local community or each national government has in terms of, building their resilience or resilient development, at the national level. So a lot of that work is still ongoing. We are still kind of, at the early stages of implementing the FRDP. And there has been a lot of kind of, technical working groups which have been set up to accommodate for I guess, the various work, that is required. Yeah. And this kind of brings back, I guess the point that the previous speaker had alluded to as well in terms of, that shift, from, I guess, the project kind of model towards kind of more partnerships, more collective efforts in terms of, raising one, maybe the awareness, but two, the planning processes, informing decision-making, and then the actual overall implementation of these actions. This is very key in terms of, not only building capacities, but empowering as well those who are practitioners, who are contributing from their different kind of, areas or different line of work that they're doing, to the overall efforts, of course, addressing their vulnerabilities, in the context of, I guess, climate change and disaster risks. And so, a lot of the work that I have been doing over the past 4 years that has been around that, there's still a bit more to go. And I understand that, the PRP task force alongside its working groups have been tirelessly kind of, well, there is kind of this momentum that's being built. And I think it's a positive momentum that we're looking, well, we look forward to as first and foremost, Kiribati, but also seeing how this will really kind of come together, For now, I think it's all about equipping national governments and national, local organizations to do their part and to contribute. And of course, in turn, in my view, transparent to kind of how we do this as a region, collectively. It's good as well on the PRP or the Pacific Resilience Partnership that we have, key players. When I say key players, we have development partners, we have, experts, we have, academia, we have, so the Pacific Resilience Partnership is really well equipped to kind of, move things forward. And I guess that's the beauty of it. It's a mechanism that is, that has everybody on board, that has interested practitioners, contributing to the overall resilience efforts in implementing the FRDP, the Framework for Resilient Development. But then again, I guess going back to my first point, I think that the key to achieving all of this is working very closely with communities and individuals at the national and also at the subnational level, in empowering them to contribute as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I mean, it's just been such a rich panel, and I wish we had about another 2 hours in which to hear everyone's thoughts. I want to, we are running out of time, so we were going to have some final thoughts, but we actually don't have time for final thoughts. And I think we've had some great input from all of our speakers. I would like to encourage our audience also to continue the conversations with our speakers offline on the virtual platform, and don't hesitate to reach out to one another. We have a very large audience that has been watching this, and I know the organizers will send out some notes from this, and we had some really great questions really about how you actually overcome or transform the project cycle and some others. So thank you for those that put them in. We'll make sure that they're captured into the notes of this meeting. Just on the poll, we have some results, and some people actually wanted to vote for all of them, which is really great. But in terms of those that people really thought were most important, the ones that really came up were diversity and inclusiveness. So the poll was, what is the most important ingredient for a transformative partnership? So the highest actually was trust building. And as a person that runs a partnership, I totally agree with that. And I think, you know, a partnership is in essence something between people, regardless of what issue you're working on. The next highest rated thing in our poll was around diversity and inclusiveness. And then after that, clear communication. And then we also had some really good thoughts from other people around other things that they would like to include in the thing, which we've also captured. And now I'm trying to find them because they're way up here. Really respect for one another's work and understanding and cooperation. It was one of the thoughts that was in the chat about what might be some other ways, other interventions or other things that are really important. And so we look forward to seeing from our organizers really some of these captured and shared with the people that were able to take part in this. And in terms of concluding remarks, oh, here's some more. There was another about the importance of partnerships to support resilient initiatives, managing needs, expectations, and moving away from project to programmatic approaches, that leadership is key and that there's opportunities for diversity and inclusion, and also the need for more collective efforts, not thinking of groups as beneficiaries. And I think that was in some ways that point before, that everyone is working together, but each is active partners, having mutual respect and appreciation for each other's contributions. Very much from all of our speakers, that is, I think, kind of the underlying approach that people are taking. But I think really just in closing, we see that by working together and sharing these risks and combining resources and competencies, we can really generate and maximize value together towards shared partnership and individual partner objectives. So we don't all have to agree on everything, but in the things that we're trying to work on together, we need to kind of understand how we're going to advance as a collective, and often through more innovative, more sustainable, more efficient, and more systemic approaches, which really touches on this shift a little bit from a project approach. And this can really lead to a transformed partnership where services are able to be delivered to citizens in a transparent and accountable manner. I would like to, we have a closing, very inspirational video in 1 minute, but I really want to thank all of our panelists, Dr. Falafo, Janet and Choi, who gave really thoughtful panel responses. And thank you to the organizers of this, and also to our sign language interpreter for doing such a great job. It has been really wonderful. And finally, as I said, I would like to leave you with a poem presented during the Pacific Resilience Meeting Youth Poem Competition. It's from Anasani Yotumbatu from Tonga, and it's about resilience and togetherness. And I hope it will make the rest of your time and this last day of the Pacific Resilience Meeting really shine and be meaningful. And so thank you once again to everyone for joining. We look forward to notes and things coming out of this session, and I thank everyone again. Thank you.
Yahweh, come, my people of Oceania. Come, hear the bounding sound of the Kelea, the waves of Moana, the Boomerang and the Nafa. Our ancestors are calling us, calling our strong men, our mighty women, and our children. The forests are withering, the waves receding, and the land degrading. Taking, kept taking. This is our time. Make haste. Fortify the shores, safeguard the sprouting seeds, and strengthen shelters. The sun soon sets. Sioatu, look ahead. Head held high with strong mind. We are ready. We were born ready. From gourd covered with earth, we were taught. We were taught to be resilient, to adapt and carry on. Never look back, just look ahead. Improvise, because we are surrounded by the rightful force, required resource, and the relevant cause. Tu'uke maloi, stand strong and sing along. Wrap our race tight and carry our duties with pride. Look ahead, the sun shines anew. Till the ground and utilize our skills. We are few, but we are stronger. We are stronger when we are together. Come, gather around Oceania. Hear the bounding sound, even feel it. So we can act, take the lead, held, head high, and fortify.